Is the playoff committee ready for this mess that we're about to witness? Because rivalry week did not disappoint. We're talking week 14 of college football. We have conference championships to discuss. Lane Kiffin and the CFP. This is the Nitro College Football Show. I am Burl.
I'm straight.
Like and subscribe if you love college football. And you should, because if you're watching this and you obviously love college football, so hit that subscribe button.
Do it.
So where do you want to start? You want to talk about SEC?
Yeah, let's start at the top here. So we needed some things to happen to finally get the SEC championship field set. It is set. The Georgia Bulldogs are headed back to Atlanta again to take on Alabama again for the fifth time. But let's talk a little bit about how we got there. So Georgia played Georgia Tech on Friday, 3:30 at Mercedes-Benz. Let me just tell you a little bit. We went to the game. Tickets cost a lot, and I didn't think that was going to happen, especially after Tech lost, but they did. They kept going up, and we had told our son we were going to go, so we spent the money, went to the game. The atmosphere was not great. People said it looked good on TV, but being in the stadium, it was just weird. You were in an NFL stadium. It was, Tech showed out pretty good. I mean, their crowd was probably 40-60, which is better than even what you usually see when it's at Tech Stadium. But the atmosphere was just weird. It was a Tech home game, rightfully so. They gave up their home game to do it. But when you've got over half the crowd clad for the other team and cheering for the other team, like the home game stuff is just kind of weird. And it just made the vibe really weird in the stadium. And my feelings on this game and coming out of this about where Tech is as a program is Tech has gotten a lot better under Brent Key, but they've got one major problem, and it's a Georgia problem. And it's not the fact that they just can't win. It's that they are so obsessed with beating Georgia that they can't let themselves be successful otherwise. And I know some people are not going to like that I'm saying this, but I sat there. We were more on the Tech side. Those fans were losing their mind on every single play of the game. Like anything that was a tackle, anything that was a remotely bad call, anything that wasn't perfect. I mean, they were complaining and losing their mind on every play, even when they were down, 10 points and they couldn't even muster touchdowns. Like just the anger and the vitriol. Like I understand being emotional. I get it, but my goodness. Like I've been to Georgia, Florida games and I've been to other stuff, and it's just the obsession and the anger. It was really weird, to be quite honest with you.
It was a weird, sloppy game. Just from the start, I mean, it seemed like Georgia was just going to run wild all over Tech, which pretty much did for most of the game. But then Bobo gets hurt and our run game basically becomes non-existent, and Gunner had the yips. But also Tech was playing some really good defense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think going into this game you expected, because both of these teams have good offenses. Tech, especially, Tech's a top 10 team in terms of offense coming into the game. You didn't expect a defensive slog, but that's what you got. Both teams in this game played great defense. Georgia continued, what they've been over the last few weeks, stopping the run, limiting teams through the air. But Georgia Tech played good defense to the game, partially because, yes, Gunner had an off day, but partially because their coaching staff made the right calls. They had them in the right position on almost every single play, almost kind of eerily good that they were lined up in the right play. So hats off to Tech's defense, but Georgia's defense was just a little bit better in this game. Tech came into this game as a top 10 offense in the country. They averaged 500 yards a game. Georgia held them to half of that. And if you take out the fact that they completed a 28-yard pass on the second to last play of the game, and they completed that one long pass there on the first series of the game, I mean, you take that out, that's like 50 yards right there. So to go a whole game, a Haynes King offense that has been great all year, and shut them down like that, I mean, it was just an absolute hell of a job by the Georgia defense in this game.
Absolutely. Defense absolutely killed it. I mean, one of the best performances we've seen this year, and the defense has just gotten better and better each week. going back to week 1, but like we talked about last week, they really turned the corner at the end of that Ole Miss game.
Yeah, they did. And the impressive thing about the Georgia defense in this game was it really did limit Haynes King. Georgia Tech ended up with about 60 yards rushing in this game, but they did not let Haynes King beat them on the ground. He tried a couple scrambles. I think his longest one may have been 8 to 10 yards, something like that. But they shut him down. And that's what you wanted to do coming in this game. I talked about that if you could try to make Georgia Tech a one-dimensional team and make them have to throw the ball down the field, that was the recipe for Georgia's success. And that's pretty much what happened. Tech really didn't try to go deep that much. The one time they did, Ellis Robinson, man, that guy's improved so much. That was a beautiful interception on the goal line. Just absolutely ridiculous. And it's something about that building that makes Georgia players make great interceptions. You know, he leads the SEC in interceptions now, which is crazy from where he was at the beginning of the year.
I know he's come such a long way, and Georgia did exactly what they needed to do against Haynes King, and that was make him throw it. And the one time they did try to take a shot, he gets picked.
Yep.
So just how we drew it up.
Yeah. And the Georgia, the linebacker crew played great. CJ Allen returned, Herculean effort, having surgery like 2 weeks ago on his meniscus. He wasn't quite full CJ Allen. He made a couple of good plays. I think he only had 2 tackles. There was one where he would normally have lit the dude up, and he kind of didn't hit him very hard, and he missed the tackle, which is not normal for CJ Allen. But it was good to see him out there. But with his deficiencies or whatever, not really. But Raylan Wilson was a man possessed. He was everywhere. He's running around. He's gotten so much better. I know we've talked about it a little bit this year as CJ Allen has played better. Raylan Wilson has played better. Just a fantastic day, from the Georgia front. They only ended up with 1 sack in the game, but I felt like they had a lot of pressure on Haynes King, didn't let him get comfortable back there. And once again, holding Tech to 0 touchdowns and 250 yards, half of their normal outage. Just an amazing job by the defense in this game.
Yeah. And, the offense has carried Georgia all year. And Georgia's won several ways this year. You've had the shootout against Tennessee and Ole Miss. You had the slobber knockers against Auburn and Florida. And now you've got a game where your defense won you the game, even though your offense didn't have its A game.
Yeah.
The offense didn't even have its C+ game.
Yeah. Well, the offense was interesting, right? I mean, obviously Gunner had an off day. He threw that interception early in the game, and that just kind of threw him off. But I also think that after that, Georgia was running the ball so well in the first half that I think Kirby and Bobo kind of shut things down. Like, we really didn't throw that many screens that we've normally have been our bread and butter. Bobo stopped throwing so many screens. Well, they didn't do that. The pass game was pretty limited. They did take a few shots downfield. There were a couple of missed PI calls, one in particular on Noah Thomas that was just horrible, on a couple of 50-50 balls. But Gunner was off. He was just weird. And it was a weird day, too, because he had a lot of runs. And there in the second half, after Tech had kind of shut the running game down, we had a couple of runs where Gunner ran like a single wing, like just a snap to him where he ran to the side. And I mean, I don't think we've really done that. We've done play action runs and design, draws, but not really just kind of single wing runs. It was weird. But looking at the running game, like I said, maybe the reason that the passing game wasn't going was the running game was working so well in the first half. Georgia had 145 yards rushing in the first half. And they only ended up with 190, and that's because, like you mentioned, Bobo got hurt in the second half. I think also Bowens wasn't available. It didn't look like Phillips was available. So this was a game. It was Nate Frazier and it was McCray. And McCray is a good short down back, but man, he's slow. Like, there were a couple of outside runs, and I was like, oh, he's going to break it, and he got caught.
Yeah, and if you need a yard, McCray's your guy.
Yeah. Great game for Frazier, but he definitely was hitting his pitch limit, and he looked tired at the end of the game, and he even came out kind of gimpy a little bit. Hope his ankle was okay, because he didn't really play that last series. If you notice, it was all McCray.
Yeah, so and that worries me, because this game saw Georgia get some players banged up, key players,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
particularly Drew
obviously,
Bobo.
yeah, I mean, Drew Bobo, losing Drew Bobo, and it's so weird to hear coming into the year, we're like, oh, Drew Bobo, okay, he's, OC's son, whatever, he's the best thing we got. He's been all conference level player this year. And it was very
Carrying on
apparent
the tradition of great centers at Georgia.
right. And it was apparent when he was out. Malachi Tolliver came in, and man, part of the reason I think Georgia struggled to run the ball was not just because they couldn't block; it was because Tolliver kept snapping it so high. I don't know, 4, 5, 6 snaps where Stockton had to jump up and catch the ball. So hopefully they'll either get him some more snaps with Gunner in practice this week, or maybe move somebody else into that position, because it could be that Tolliver worked a lot with the twos, and Puglisi's a little bit taller than Stockton, so maybe that's what he's used to. But yeah, that was a problem. But at the end of the day, like I said, the offense wasn't great, but thank goodness for Zachariah Branch. I, I can't tell you how much that dude has meant to this Georgia offense. He is the thing that makes it go. In
He
a day
really
when you
is.
only,
He
uh,
really is, because he is the supplement to the run game,
yep,
and he's your third down security blanket, and he's your game breaker. I mean,
right,
he has that start, stop, fast twitch, can take it to the house from anywhere on the field,
yeah. I
and
mean,
he showed that this week again, like he has every week.
yeah, I mean, even the touchdown, my God, Gunner made a horrible throw, and Branch just stopped in his tracks and juked that guy out. Like, we wouldn't get that if that's another player. If that's not Zachariah Branch, that's not a touchdown. It's a guy who is tackled at the 2-yard line or the 3-yard line or whatever. So thank goodness for him. And the other people that we really have to thank are the special teams. Thorson had a great game, over 50 yards a punt. And then you've got automatic Peyton Woodring. This guy has quietly become arguably the best kicker in the country. And I don't even think he's a finalist for the Groza Award, which is stupid because he's missed one field goal this year. And as it currently stands, since 2000, he is the SEC's all time leader in field goal percentage for any kickers who have made at least 50 field goals.
Somehow Georgia just continues to have great kicker after great kicker.
Yep.
I can't tell you a time when I ever remember, except maybe it was Billy Bennett was probably the last time where there was, some doubt that
Yeah, but
we're
Billy
going to
Bennett
make
was
it.
the NCAA's all time leader in scoring when he left Georgia.
I
He
know,
was
that's what
dang
I'm
near
getting
automatic.
at, is even with sometimes having that doubt, like, he was still amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, this was a good game for Georgia. The Georgia defense was fantastic. Hats off to Tech because their defense has been beat up all year. They played a hell of a game. Couple controversial calls, but man, like I said, those Tech fans, goodness gracious. Like, there was a face mask against Georgia where there was 2 face masks on the play. The guy's head turned right and left. Oh my
Oh,
God, these
yeah.
Tech fans were like losing their mind. And I'm like, there was 2 face masks on the play.
I
Um,
I gotta say, one of my favorite things that I saw on Twitter throughout the game is, like, whenever there was a call that didn't go Tech's way, just all the complaining about the refs, about, "Oh, Georgia gets all the calls," and I'm just like, "They're ACC refs.
right, right.
What incentive do they have to help Georgia?"
Yeah. So, yeah. So my final evaluation on this game is, don't let people tell you that Georgia played a bad game, because the Georgia defense was fantastic. For one half, the Georgia rush offense was about as good as you can be. The quarterback had a bad day, sputtered down, but this was a game that, even though, yeah, Tech had a Hail Mary at the end of the game, thank you to Jaden Rettel for knowing how to knock down a pass. It still felt like this was never really in doubt at the end of the game. And I think Brooks Austin had the best.
Speak for yourself, man. I was having some doubt there that last drive when it became a Hail Mary. I've seen that movie before.
I have too. But I think Brooks Austin had the best analysis going in that came true. And he said that this game would be like the time that a pitcher that you third time through the lineup, you see a pitcher and you get used to what they're seeing, and they make you look bad the first 2 times, at that third time. And I think that's what it was with Haynes King. and Buster Faulkner, Georgia's third time seeing that combination. They knew what was coming and they shut it down. So play calling was strange in the second half. Offense was off, but all in all, a good win. And then Georgia sat back and watched on Friday night. And Friday night, Texas hosted Texas A&M, and the dream season of Texas A&M where they hadn't played anybody outside of Notre Dame, and it showed, and Texas beat them 27-17. And with that loss, Georgia was going back to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. So the dream of the double bye died.
It did. It did, unfortunately. But another year, another SEC championship for the Dogs. And it was a pretty shocking upset the way it went down. Like, it's not necessarily shocking that Texas beat Texas A&M, but like the way it all happened. At the end of the game, Marcel Reed, your Heisman guy, having a great year, throws two terrible picks.
Yep.
Just uncharacteristic. I mean, I won't say it's uncharacteristic, but not what you want from your star player in crunch time.
Yeah, you definitely can't throw one at the 3-yard line. Especially not in a tight game. And especially in a game where their defense was playing great. Especially the first half, they were winning 10-3 at halftime. So Texas A&M's defense, was keeping them in it, and just at the end of the game, they fell short. Texas, for Texas, they got their running game going a little bit, which is something that they've lacked all season long. Wisner went for 155 yards on 19 carries, but it was all kind of capped off at the end there by Arch Manning's long touchdown run that kind of sealed the game, kind of put things away for them. With that, Texas, of course, has started the process of trying to beg, plead, borrow, steal to get themselves in the playoffs. They keep talking about our record's so strong. We're the only team that played 3 top 10 teams. If scheduling a team like Ohio State and losing only hurts you, then why are we going to do it? Blah, 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 blah. But I'm sorry, Texas. If you wanted to be in the playoff, then you shouldn't have lost to a 4-8 Florida team. You shouldn't have lost by 25 on the road at Georgia. And you shouldn't have needed overtime to beat a Mississippi State team that went 1-7 in conference. As great, it's great that you have some good wins, that you beat Texas A&M, that you beat Oklahoma. That's great that you beat Vanderbilt. But at the end of the day, you had 3 regular season losses, and you could have easily had 4 or 5. So you got lucky. Your team is better. You're going to be really good next year. You were preseason number 1, and you're probably going to be up there in the top 5 next year. But this is not your year. I'm sorry you lost games. But at least you got to end the perfect season of your big rival, Texas A&M, who will now still be in the playoffs, but now they get to sit back, not play in Atlanta, and will probably get to host a playoff game. And in some ways, that kind of sucks for Georgia, right? Because Georgia won, and now they get rewarded with having to go play a game when they're banged up next week. And if they lose, then they're going to have to probably play another playoff game in the first round. Texas A&M is going to essentially get a bye this week and then get to host a playoff game. So, I'm not going to complain about being in the SEC championship. What's Kirby always say? You can't complain when you're sitting in the penthouse. But
yeah, let me chime in. So there's been a lot of talk about, and even Kirby was talking about this, does anybody care about this game? And I think it's a little bit. Like, there are some stakes going into it. If Georgia is able to win, then they're pretty much going to get a bye. But if they lose, then they're still in the playoffs. But maybe it's a home playoff game. I don't know. I mean, that it's kind of up in the air at that point. Left to the committee. But the goal of your season is to get into the playoff, right? So now you've got these championship games, whether it be SEC championship, Big Ten championship. Hell, the Big Ten championship has number 1 versus number 2. And absolutely nothing
Right.
Absolutely nothing. The only
What are
thing
those teams gaining by playing in that playoff
these
game?
are actually just turned into
Yeah.
glorified scrimmages.
Right. But the problem is if you're on the, you know, on the verge of being kicked out, like you're Alabama, if Alabama loses, I mean, and we'll get to Alabama Auburn in a second. If Alabama loses with
I
the way
could
they play
too,
down the
but
stretch,
at the
I
same
could
time,
absolutely see them getting left out of the
I
playoff.
know it's different this year because of the straight seeding, but they they didn't punish teams last year for the results of their championship games. So there's a chance that it's a wash for Bama, but
Correct.
it wouldn't shock me though for them to be left out. And honestly, it wouldn't break my heart. So all the Bama fans saying, "Oh, we're getting left out after losing the SEC championship." Well, yeah, that happened to Georgia 2 years ago, coming off back-to-back defending national champions, lost one game by 3
Yeah.
points in the SEC championship. So
Yeah,
exactly.
in coming in with what, a 29 game win streak too. They lost one game by 3 points. So, yeah, I mean it happens. So yeah, so we've got Georgia, Alabama in the SEC championship. Let's talk a little bit about how we got to that. Alabama took on Auburn in the Iron Bowl on Saturday night, and
It
man,
was
this
a
was a
slugfest.
hard hitting, old
Slugfest.
school SEC football game. It was everything
Yeah.
It was everything that makes the Iron Bowl a always a great game to watch, because even though you've got this Auburn team that didn't have a head coach, that, you know, has changed quarterbacks and had, you know, a captain get kicked off the team and all this stuff, they play their hearts out when they play Alabama. And honestly, in this game, I think they lost for two main reasons. They didn't lose because Alabama really beat them. Alabama was not any really better than Auburn in this game. They lost for two main reasons. One, because Ashton Daniels, as good as he was running the ball and in making some plays with his legs, he was inaccurate on a lot of throws. And if he had just thrown some inaccurate passes, they probably would have won pretty easy. Number two was stupid mental lapses. One was the horrible interception that was a good pass from Ashton Daniels that tipped off the Auburn's guy's hand right to Alabama. And then, of course, there at the end of the game, trying to go tie it, Cam Coleman catches a pass. You know, time is of the essence there. Yeah, they had the timeouts, but he had three guys in front of him. He just should have went out of bounds, tried to get an extra yard. Why? Because they would have had to take a timeout. Was kind of a stupid play, and he fumbled.
Yeah.
And that, you know,
It
pretty much
it
wrapped the
was. I
game up.
mean,
So
hard hitting, lived up to the
it
name
was
Iron Bowl.
it was
I
a
mean,
fun
they
game
were
to watch,
beating the
though.
crap out of each other. Ty Simpson was taking some hellacious shots.
Man, the Auburn front was relentless on Ty Simpson. I think they only got called for like one roughing the passer,
Well, yeah,
but they very easily could have
especially the
gotten
way they
called
call
for
it
at
nowadays.
least I saw at least two or three more that were called. Yeah. Well, and then every time Ty Simpson, he took off and ran a couple of times. I mean, there were some plays where the Auburn guys kind of fell over top of him, knocked him back.
Yeah,
Like
he is. He is.
I'll give Ty
And
Simpson all the
what
credit
I'm
in the world. He's
hoping
a tough
for is
dude.
kind of a repeat of when I forget the year. I know you know it. With the year we first went to the national championship and lost, where we won the SEC championship after losing to Auburn during the regular season. They play Bama, they get really beat up, and then they roll into the SEC championship, and Georgia smokes them. Although in this case, though, Bama's rolling and beat up.
Yeah.
Georgia's rolling and beat
Yeah,
up.
that was in 20
Everybody's beat up. Like absolutely beat up. So that's why I called it a glorified
Everybody is beat
scrimmage,
to hell
because
coming into this game.
you know the Georgia's
Yeah.
backups are having to fill in for all the injured people. They're getting live reps.
Yeah. Yeah. So for Alabama, the interesting thing here is going to be Jam Miller, because Alabama all year long has struggled with its rushing attack, but in this game they were actually running the ball pretty well. Jam Miller had 83 yards, and then he went out hurt looked like it was a knee injury. It looked pretty bad. I haven't heard an update yet, but if he's out, I mean, I don't know. They don't have a lot at the rushing game that's been reliable outside of him and Simpson running the ball. And it's going to be important for them to run the ball. They could not run the ball at all in Athens, and that almost bit them. Um, so, for Alabama, it's important to establish the run game because as the second half of the season is seen, without that run game, Simpson has struggled a lot more early in the season. He was lighting it up. No, hardly any interceptions, tons of touchdowns. Second half, not so much. Now, he did have 3 touchdown passes in this game, all 3 to Isaiah Horton. Ryan Williams has fell off the face of the planet. He wasn't even targeted in this game. So it seems like Horton and Jeremy Bernard have kind of taken over that spot, and Ryan Williams has fallen back. But I must say that the decision by Alabama when the game was tied at 20 on 4th down at whatever it was, 3-4 yard line to go for the touchdown. Now it worked out, and Alabama on that play, they ran a pick. And you're either going to get called for it or you're going to have the guy wide open. And they could have probably gotten called for it. It was a close play.
It was.
But the guy ended up being open for the touchdown. That was a ballsy call. Like, I didn't think they needed to do it. I would have taken the points if I was Bama there. But they got lucky.
Yeah, and it seems lately they
sometimes you
tend
need
to
luck.
have that
And it
kind
seems
of
like they
luck
always
at
seem to get it in
Auburn.
this game. But yeah, that's what I mean. The 4th down luck, the crazy plays, the
Yep.
things that happen,
It
they just always seem to
absolutely
get
was.
it. So yeah, it was a ballsy call by DeBoer. If they don't get that, I mean, if they don't get that and they end up losing that game, like
Well, I'm as a Georgia fan, I was
I wouldn't
actually
want to be on
happy
fine ball Monday
that
morning.
Bama ended up pulling it out. And reason why is selfishly, I want Georgia to beat Bama. I want to beat Bama. That's the one loss on the schedule, on the record. We get a chance to get it back and get the bye.
And to try to set this right, this is Georgia's 5th
It's time
playing
to turn
Bama
it
in the
around.
ACC Championship. 0-4. Everybody knows Georgia is 1-10 in their last 11.
So what is the
Alabama.
SEC Championship actually going to look like? Are we
It's got to turn around at some
We know
point.
there's all kinds of injuries. Georgia's offensive line probably isn't going to have Drew Bobo. Nathan Frazier is hobbled. We don't know how healthy Bowens is.
We don't know about Phillips either. On the defensive side, CJ Allen's back, but I mean, he did have meniscus surgery a couple weeks ago. Obviously, we lost Jordan Hall's out for the year. Kyron Jones still hasn't been back yet. So there's still a lot, of guys banged up on both sides of the ball for Georgia. Alabama,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the major injury is
that was
Jam
a
Miller.
big difference in the first meeting, right?
But they've got
Jam
some
Miller
other guys banged up too.
was able to run the ball decently, and of course Ty Simpson played like out of his mind that game and hasn't played that way since.
Yeah. I mean, I think that right. The real change that Georgia needs to happen to win this game, and we'll preview it later, but the main thing is he's getting off the field on 3rd down. Alabama was 13 of 18. They started the game 9-9 on 3rd down. That's the reason that Georgia lost the first game, and the dumb decision not to take the points when we should have. But beside that, it was a close game, and I expect it's going to be something similar here.
So we've got
next weekend
all this upheaval since Texas beats A&M. Georgia Tech is completely out of the playoffs. Vanderbilt smokes Tennessee. Oklahoma hangs on to barely beat LSU, and Ole Miss just ran through Ole Miss, but now they don't have Lane Kiffin. So I asked this at the very beginning of the show: is the playoff committee ready for this mess?
Yeah, I don't know. So the first question starts right there with Ole Miss. Ole Miss beats Mississippi State 38-19. offense stays on track. Trinidad Chambliss has an amazing game.
He really should be
359
in the
yards
Heisman
passing, 4
race.
touchdowns, puts him over 3,000 yards in the season. Now, because he wasn't, that's what I was about to say. He wasn't the start at the beginning of the year, and so I think he was kind of getting overlooked. With some of these other guys kind of having off weeks this last week of the season, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets some votes. I don't know if he's going to get enough to get to New York, but he's really had a hell of a season for them. And the Ole Miss offense just kept chugging along.
Yeah.
On the Mississippi State side, you had to be impressed again with Kamario Taylor. The dude he's a baller, man. 173 yards rushing, 2 more touchdowns. He's going to be a force if he sticks around there at Mississippi State. They build that offense
super
around him.
talented
He develops
kid.
as a passer.
That was actually
They're
a
gonna
really
score some
fun
points
game to
next year in that
watch.
Jeff Levy offense.
Even though Mississippi State wasn't going to win and it ended up getting out of hand, it was fun watching Kamario Taylor. I mean, I was texting you too. The game was like, wow, just some of the plays he was making were awesome.
Yep. Yeah. So beside the score, the most intriguing thing about this game was the Lane Kiffin situation. Obviously, we found out that Lane Kiffin ultimately took the job at LSU. There's all kinds of drama around that. But first and foremost, before we cover Lane, let's talk a little bit about what's left at Ole Miss. Golding's going to take over as the head coach, and he's been named the permanent head coach there. So the question is, how does this impact their playoff seeding? Because we've seen in the past, Florida State lost its quarterback, and the committee had bumped them down. Now that was in the 4 team. Ole Miss is going to be in the playoffs no matter what here. But the question is, does the committee punish them
into consideration? Because not only did Ole Miss lose Kiffin, they lost Charlie Weiss Jr. in that offensive step, and Joe Cox.
Joe Cox.
He's the tight ends coach.
He's the co-offensive coordinator, the Ginger Ninja.
But I mean, Lane Kiffin is really that offensive coordinator. I mean, because
they lost a lot of their offensive
when Ole Miss played Georgia about how the Kiffin whistle, like they'll be on the sideline and he changes the play like right there, and because he sees something that other people don't, which is his superpower, right? So not having that is a key component to that offensive engine. So I don't know how well that team will execute without Kiffin and Charlie Weiss.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question becomes around that team is if they rally around, around their new coach and they say, you know what, screw those guys, we're going to fight, we're going to win.
Yeah.
And they just play really inspired football in the playoffs. That absolutely could happen. We've seen teams rally around the coaches who decide to stay. Look at Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, when Brian Kelly left, and look at how they've rallied and improved that program and took the things that Brian Kelly said when he left to heart. And, so we'll see what happens. I think it was smart to at least, naming him the head coach was a smart move in terms of
it is, but it's also kind of suspect because Ole Miss is an offensive driven team. That is how they got there. That is their bread and butter. That is their identity.
Yes.
Now you got Golding, who coaches a defense that, let's face it, is not great. Like they're decent, but they're not great. And now he's going to be running the show without all the offensive coaches that help put these plans together. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that is changing. So, I mean, they'll, depending on who they get matched up with in that first round, they're going to come out playing very inspired. I totally see that happening. But I don't know how far they get. I mean, I think the committee is going to have to drop them a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Um, let's talk more about Kiffin in a little bit. Let's wait on that. Let's talk the remaining teams that are in the hunt out of the SEC. So you brought up Vanderbilt just housing Tennessee, winning by 21 at Neyland. This was a statement game for the Vanderbilt program. All year they've been beating their chests all year long. Clark Lee gets the huge extension. What is it, 6, 7 years? He's going to be around for a long time. They're invested. Um, Diego Pavia, the Heisman train, is going full bore. He had 165 yards on the ground, 268 in the air, 3 total touchdowns. And even in this game, he
Yeah,
started out
on
bad.
the
He threw 2
ground.
bad picks in
I
the
mean,
first half, but
he
in
racked
the
up
second half, man, he was
yards,
just a
yards,
man
yards.
possessed.
That was the name of the game for him, and that paid off for Vandy because they were able to actually convert
Yeah,
into touchdowns and run away with it. And going into this game, I said if Vandy wins this, Javi is going to New York.
yep.
I think he's going to win the Heisman at this point. It
Oh, he's going to New York. At this point, he's.
that's a good point.
I don't know because he doesn't play this next week, and the new rule is that Heisman voters cannot. Heisman voters now have it's a 48-hour window. It doesn't start until after the conference championship games are over. Whereas before, you could submit your ballot before. Now they're not
Yeah.
letting them
So if
submit them
Indiana
until
rolls
after
in
the
there,
conference championship game,
smokes
and
Ohio
only giving them
State, and
48 hours to do
Mendoza
it.
puts up ungodly numbers, and vice versa, you know, if Julian Sayin, if they smoke
Then
Indiana
Julian
and
Sayin
Julian
loses
Sayin
some
puts up
votes.
ungodly
Yeah,
numbers, could be either one of those guys.
yeah. So, like I said, this was a complete game for Vanderbilt. They racked up 4 sacks. They held Tennessee to 382 yards, which was 100 yards below their season average. And for Tennessee, Tennessee was a good football team this year, but this game was kind of a microcosm of the same issues that they've had all year. Offense is good, but when they really need stops, they couldn't get them, and they just got beat. Is this a sign of things to come for Vanderbilt in the state of Tennessee? I don't know. They're trying to real hard to flip Jared Curtis from Georgia. That may happen on Wednesday. So if they got that, they've got a coach who's going to be committed there for a long time. They had their first 10-win season since like 1920s, and maybe a number 1 quarterback coming in. Vanderbilt could be a force to reckon in. Now, do they get into the playoffs? It's going to be real tough just because even sitting at 10-2, it's going to be real tough. But there is some weird stuff that could happen, and we can talk about that later.
Let's talk about it.
Potentially could sneak in. Well, let's talk about LSU first in Oklahoma. Let's finish talking about the SEC teams. So Oklahoma goes on the road to LSU, and just like all of these Oklahoma games have become, they just want to drag you down and beat you up and do just enough to win the game. And that's what they did. 17-13, defensive struggle the whole game. It took, Mateer threw 3 interceptions in this game,
one or
but
two
he
of
did throw
those
2 touchdowns,
interceptions
including
were drop
a
tip
58-yarder
passes,
there to give them
not
the lead in
necessarily
the fourth
his
quarter.
fault. No.
Yeah. But like we said, he still has not been the same player he was earlier in the year. Just lighten it up. But the Oklahoma defense has continued to do its job. They held LSU to 198 yards in this game. LSU was 2 of 14 on 3rd down. Like, that's a recipe to win. And Oklahoma, held LSU down so much that even though their offense wasn't great, this was the first time in Oklahoma's last 4 games, all wins, that they outgained their opponents on in total yardage, which is kind of a crazy stat, right? LSU falls to 7-5. They've got Lane Kiffin. They got more. They're looking forward to that. But as for Oklahoma, Oklahoma's in the playoffs. I think they're solidly in. I don't think there's any way that they don't get in at this point. They played arguably the toughest schedule in the whole country. They went 10-2. They won tough games on the road. They beat Alabama. They beat LSU.
One question I have,
field.
and this is where going back to the opening question about is the committee ready for this mess? With Texas A&M losing this past weekend, they were looking like they were going to get a first round bye. Do where do you see them, ending up?
Right.
Like, where does the committee put them?
So here's what I think is going to happen. I think Ohio State and Indiana, whoever wins will be 1. Whoever loses that game will be probably 3, potentially, depending on what happens. So if Georgia wins the SEC championship game, Georgia's going to move up to probably 2 behind the winner of that game. The loser of that game will fall to 3. And then at number 4 would probably be Texas Tech if they win the Big 12 championship. Would probably be Texas Tech. So I think those would be your top 4 if, like I said, that's if Georgia wins. Now, in a scenario where Georgia loses, that's where things get a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it should
Georgia,
be.
it will probably be 3 in the rankings that come out this week. If they lose and Alabama wins, they're probably going to bump Alabama up to number 4, even though Alabama has 2 losses. They're probably going to bump Alabama up to number 4 to get them into a bye. They won't want to have Georgia Alabama play again in the first, or it potentially right there the second round of the playoffs. So they might drop Georgia to 6.
Which 6 would
I
be
think that's
great
probably the
because
farthest
that would
Georgia
be a home
drops
playoff game.
if they lose. And under that scenario, right. I think Georgia. I think at this point, Georgia's solidly going to host a playoff game no matter what, because they beat Ole Miss in the regular season. I don't think there's any way that Ole Miss ends up ahead of them. So I think they are pretty solid there. They're not going to put Notre Dame. They're not going to put an ACC school or Miami above Georgia, who only lost once in the
Yep.
regular season by 3 points, potentially if they lost to
So
the same team
you
again.
so you mentioned Miami.
I
So
think worst
let's
case
go ahead
scenario, Georgia
and
ends up
move
at
to the
6.
ACC because this is where
Bama
things really
sneaks up
get
there.
weird, and this is where a lot of the contention and turmoil is going to come from.
Yeah.
Is a couple questions. What if Duke wins? They beat Virginia in the ACC championship. They're going to get into the playoff, right? Or no, they wouldn't, because it's 4 highest ranked conference champions. So
No, they're
that'd be
not.
your group
No.
of 5, right?
Right.
I called it.
Yeah. So let's first talk about how Duke is even back in the playoff conversation. Um, Cal, who fired their coach, goes to SMU, or goes and plays SMU and beats them 38-35. Duke goes and beats Wake Forest, which sends Duke to the ACC championship game at 7-5 with all their tiebreakers. On the opposite side, Virginia, 27-7 over Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, they just wanted the season to be over so they could start the James Franklin era. They didn't really care. Virginia quarterback Chandler Morris, who'd been kind of injured a little bit, came back, had 180 yards, had a running touchdown. Jamari Taylor had a touchdown and threw a touchdown. So Virginia solidified its spot. They're in at 10-2. And they're in at 10-2, but really only one technical conference loss because of the whole weird thing with NC State. And they're going to play Duke for the ACC championship. My God, this is a smart bowl game, or a smart championship game. the IQ, this is the IQ bowl, man. It's crazy. But yeah, so Duke coming in this game at 7-5. I mean, they're not ranked, and right now there's Tulane and James Madison, that I think are playing in conference championship games that would definitely, they both win. They're going to get in the playoff, and the ACC is not going to get
which is
an
super
automatic
interesting.
bid into
So
the
if that
playoffs
happens, then that really would open the door for Miami. If you think about it, because they're right on the bubble right there. So
it would.
what needs to happen? Yeah. What needs to happen for Miami to get in?
Right. So I think you got to watch. So one, Miami beat Pittsburgh. They beat Pittsburgh down. A Pittsburgh team that beat Georgia Tech last week, that, has been ranked on and off throughout the season, they looked absolutely strong, beating the crap out of Pittsburgh. There was concern it was cold. Miami didn't care. Carson Beck had another good game, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns. Carson Beck has found the fire again that he lost midseason. 11 touchdowns, only 1 interception in his last 4 games. All Miami wins, all comfortable wins. The Miami defense played lights out against Pittsburgh. They held their rushing attack that had 190 yards against Tech last week, 30 yards on the ground. So all those things that Miami was doing early in the year, Carson Beck playing well, the defense playing well, all that showed out again here in this game. Miami has rounded back into what you thought they were earlier in the year when they knocked off Notre Dame. So the real interesting point here is for Miami to make the playoff, I think, one, you need Duke to win because Duke is not going to be in the playoff. So that takes the ACC out of a playoff spot. Yes, it puts one of those Joker conferences in, but so what? So I think you need Duke out of the playoff, number one. Okay. Number two, you need to watch the college football playoff ranking show tomorrow night because the playoff committee on their thing where they look at rankings, the top 2 things are supposed to be your strength of schedule and head-to-head competition. Now, they have said that they weren't comparing Miami and Notre Dame previously, but Miami with this strong win, I think I think this week they really do take a look at Miami and Notre Dame, and they really need to ask themselves, Miami beat them head to head and is playing good football again, really strong the last few weeks. So the eye test is there, the head to head is there. Miami's schedule is probably at this point better than Notre Dame's. I mean, this game over Pittsburgh helps their strength of schedule. So if Miami is going to make the playoff, I think they, like I said, they need Duke to lose. There are some other things to happen. Alabama to lose, potentially.
Okay.
Or they need to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame tomorrow night.
So that's going to be kind of a stretch based off what they've done, but committee can do whatever the hell they want.
Right. And that's the thing. Like I said, Miami, with this win over Pittsburgh, helps them because it helps their strength of schedule. Because Pittsburgh had a pretty good strength. I think they were 8-3 coming in. So it helps them. It's another quality. And Pittsburgh was ranked
really
22nd or whatever. So it's another quality win.
Miami is going to be the biggest Duke fans this weekend. They have to be. That
Duke fans, Georgia fans, they're rooting for Georgia to blow out Alabama, and they're rooting for Duke to win. They're rooting for Texas Tech to blow out BYU.
So let's
to
talk
eliminate
about
anybody else that possibly could keep them.
Who out of the current rankings could be out of the playoffs? So Bama potentially, if Georgia beats them really bad.
Well, yeah. So who's in, who's out? Well, do you want let's before we get to that, do you want to talk about
Big Ten is
the Big Ten real
not
quick
much
and the Big
to talk
12?
about, honestly.
Kind of where things sit there.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say the Big Ten is set. They've got 3 playoff teams no matter what. It's going to be Indiana, who murdered Purdue. Ohio State finally broke their. Let's talk a little bit about Ohio State beating Michigan because it's kind of a big deal for it to happen the first time in 5 years. Man, the Ohio State defense just continues to be amazing as they've been all year. They held Michigan to 9 points, which was a shutout in the second half. Michigan only had 163 yards in the game total. Like, I don't care who you are. That's doing some work against a team that's beating you. They continued to get good play out of Julian Sayin, 233 yards, 3 touchdowns in the snow.
He was very impressive. That was the first game that I really got a good look at him playing, since the Texas game. And man, he was on point, hitting guys in stride, making tough throws, playing in the snow. I mean, great performance.
Yeah. So the only thing in this game that could have switched it up, I think, was the controversial touchdown to Jeremiah Smith.
He was
Beautiful
definitely
pass,
juggling it
beautiful
as he crossed
catch, but
the goal
Jeremiah
line,
Smith, I
but
think he fumbled that ball.
this is where I kind of have an issue with the detail in instant replay because it's getting analyzed at the microscopic
Yeah.
level almost. And if there was no replay, like, no one would care.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, right. I mean, yeah, if there was no replay, nobody would even really noticed it.
Yeah. All
Um,
that being said,
like I said, it did look to me
he
like
did
he
bobble the ball as
actually
he was
had
going to
lost
the end
control,
zone.
but
I mean,
all that being said, yes. And all that being said, Ohio State defense was fantastic. Michigan couldn't do anything. Bryce Underwood has a long way to go as a passer. They paid him a lot of money, but they're going to be really good. Michigan had five true freshman starters on offense and like two or three more on the defense. Michigan is going to be a really, really good football team next year or in 2 years. They're just not there yet. Ohio State is a dominant team. Last thing I want to point out, this was a very strong rushing day for Bo Jackson. It's just so weird that Ohio State has a guy named Bo Jackson. So Ohio State caps its regular season, another impressive defensive win. They have now won, the 4 games in the playoffs last year, 12, so 16 in a row, heading into this showdown with Indiana. That should be a great game next week. Um, as for the other team in the Big Ten that is securely in the playoff, that nothing's going to happen next week to move them out. That's Oregon. Took care of business against Washington, a team that has been a thorn in their side. This was a one-score game with about 8 minutes to go. Dante Moore found Malik Benson long touchdown. Oregon defense was great in this game. Held Washington to 129 yards passing, 2 picks. Washington's a good team, good scoring team this year, 35 points a game. So
yeah. Okay, so in the Big 12, we got a rematch from earlier this season. We got Texas Tech versus BYU. And this is really going to have some ramifications on the playoff and where people get seated, because I think really, based off what we were talking about earlier, whichever team wins this game could get that number 4 spot.
oh, absolutely. I think Texas Tech is going to be ranked number 4
Yeah.
this week. So I think Texas Tech wins, no doubt. They are a 4 or potentially as high as a 2
Yeah.
in a scenario where Georgia loses and maybe Indiana or Ohio State blow the other one out. They could be anywhere as high as a 2. I mean, 49-0 against West Virginia is nothing to shake your head at. West Virginia has played better in the second half of this season. They absolutely murdered them. Like, it wasn't even a contest. And Jacob Rodriguez got another rushing touchdown,
Okay.
but they got a little bit
So
greedy and they
let's
tried to have
say
him throw a
for
pass and he got
whatever
picked
reason
off in the end zone.
BYU actually pulls
So,
it off and wins this game. Where if they don't get the 4 seed, who gets that
yep.
4 seed? Is that good? Is it going to be Texas A&M?
Mm-hmm.
No. Let's say Georgia wins,
No,
blows
Georgia will
out,
get it.
or
Let's
Georgia
say Georgia
wins. Doesn't have
lost.
to be a blowout.
If
Georgia
Georgia
wins. Ohio State wins.
okay.
Indiana at 3. Georgia 2. Now number 4 is up in the air.
Okay. It's probably it might be Oregon.
I guess it depends on how far Texas A&M falls this week.
It could be Oregon. It could be
Yeah, I think it'd be one of
It could
them.
be Oregon. It could be Texas A&M.
I really lean towards A&M, but
Yeah. Or it could be, you know what? It could be Ole Miss.
Yeah, but
I
they
mean, Ole
don't have
Miss
their
has only
offensive
lost to
staff
Georgia by
anymore.
8 points or whatever. Yeah, true. Yeah, it's weird. Like you said,
That's what
I
I'm
don't know if
saying. That's
I
what
don't
I'm
know if
like.
the committee
I'm
is
thinking
ready
about all
for the
these different
potentials of
scenarios.
what
Like
could
this is
happen.
we have entered the realm of chaos, and it's great.
Yeah. So let's think about it. Let's think about it this way: who is in? Who's on the bubble? Let's just go through all the schools and let's say so.
Georgia.
Who's in? Who we know's in? We know Ohio State. We know Indiana. We know Texas A&M. We know Georgia. We know Oklahoma. We know Oregon and Ole Miss. So we have 7 teams that nothing can change
Did you
next
say
week
Notre
is going
Dame?
to change those schools being in the playoffs. Now, where they
Okay.
are, that could change, but
I
they
think
are
they're in no matter what.
what. No, I did not. Okay. There are 4 teams, maybe well, there's 4 teams this week that if they win, they are in. And that's Alabama, Texas Tech, BYU, and Virginia. Now, Texas Tech and BYU would play each other, so it would be one or the other. Virginia, where they're currently ranked, if they win, they will get in as a conference champion. Okay, so that's there's going to potentially 3 of those could take spots as well. If if Bama wins and Virginia wins and one of those school, that puts us at 10. So that leaves us with 2 spots left, and one of those is going to go to the G4. So, but the win and hope the committee likes them. That's the G4 one. So there's 3 teams that are in contention for that. That's Tulane and North Texas, who are going to play for the American title, and then James Madison. One of those 3 is going to get in. Okay. And then that leaves you with teams that I called the bubble. There are 3 teams that are sitting on the outside that need stuff to happen to potentially get in. And that's Notre Dame, that's Miami, and that's Vanderbilt. That's it. Those are the teams that have a shot. So that's 7 definites, 4 potentials,
Do
and
you think
6. So
Bama would be
there's
left
17
out
teams that are
if they
still in contention
lose
for a
in the
playoff spot
SEC
right here
championship?
today. I think it depends on how if they went into that game and Georgia took them to the woodshed. Yeah, I do. Because at the end of the day, people are going to look back at that loss to Florida State. A Florida State team that just lost to Florida without a head coach. And I
It
know
has
that's
gotten
weird,
worse
and
every
everybody's
week.
kind of forgotten about that, but that was a really, really bad loss. It has gotten worse all season long. And if it comes down to that, and they're going to look at Bama
Or
with 3
Vanderbilt.
losses versus potentially letting in Miami or Notre Dame or Vanderbilt. Now, they beat Vanderbilt,
Yeah,
so
that would make sense.
Bama would
That would make sense.
probably get the benefit of the doubt there.
So even if
But
Duke doesn't win the ACC, if Bama loses, Miami is probably going to get that last spot. I'm already
right now, I don't think
bagging
so.
Notre
Well,
Dame
no,
in
Notre
at 8
Dame's going to
and
get the last
OU
spot
at
right now.
9.
Okay. So I think for Miami or Vanderbilt to make it, unless Miami, like I said, tomorrow, playoff rankings tomorrow matter. Miami Notre Dame is the one to watch. Whoever is ranked higher tomorrow night is going to probably be in, most likely. Now, the only way the other one gets in is Duke winning the ACC championship. Miami ends up getting in, taking that spot that was the ACC spot, and then it's between Notre Dame and Vanderbilt.
I want to look at something real quick.
And
because something just crossed my mind. Okay, so right now, as of last week, you have Bama at 10, BYU at 11, and Miami at 12. So there is a distinct possibility that even if it is a close game for Georgia and Alabama in the SEC Championship, that the committee could just say, you got 3 losses, and one of them is really, really bad. So next up is Miami.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Bama losing, Duke winning is the best spot that makes Miami and Notre Dame and potentially Vanderbilt in the playoff. And that's the only way
I don't see any way all
Otherwise,
3
there's
of
no
those
way
can
in
get
hell
in.
all 3 of those get in. And there may not even be. Yeah. And yeah, that's what it's going to be. So, yeah, so let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about it throughout, but let's run down the championship games. These are the games that we're going to be predicting in our next show. So the SEC
The more
Championship, you've
things
got
change, the
Georgia
more
at
they stay the
11-1 taking on
same.
Alabama at 10-2. In the Right. In the Big Ten, obviously, you've got number 1 Ohio State at 12-0 taking on number
Seriously,
2
number 1
Indiana,
versus number
also at
2. I mean,
12-0. What a matchup
that used to be the SEC
in
Championship,
that
but
conference championship game.
it was for a spot in the playoff before it was 12 teams.
Right. I mean, how many times have they had 1 versus 2? I mean, I guess the first game of the season was Ohio State, but was Penn State number 2
I think
preseason, or was it Ohio State?
I can't remember.
When it was Ohio State, Texas. Texas was 1 first game of the year. Yeah. I mean, I know we had Georgia, Tennessee 1 versus 3 a couple years ago, was pretty cool, but to have a 1-2
No,
matchup
it doesn't.
in a conference championship game,
But it's pretty
it
cool.
doesn't
It's
happen a
just
lot.
with the fact that both of those teams are going to get a first round bye. It just seems like that's inevitable, right?
Right. Right. I think it's just, I don't know, it's a conference championship, it's bragging rights. So
Indiana, they're going to show up fired up.
Indiana
This
has
first
more to
time
play for,
Indiana
I think, honestly.
has a real chance at winning the Big Ten and God knows how long. And Ohio State, I don't know. I mean, are they going to be really pumped for this game? I don't know.
Yeah. And then in the Big 12, you've got BYU, Texas Tech. BYU gets its rematch of its only loss in the season on the season, much like Georgia's getting its second shot at Alabama. Texas Tech has steamrolled everybody under the sun, including BYU the first time they played. So one team's going to the playoff, the other one's probably missing the playoff. There's a chance Texas Tech
it
still gets in
definitely
if
feels
they
like
lose,
it's
but
one in, one out.
I bet it's 1 in,
because
1 out.
if Texas Tech loses, the committee's gunning to put Miami in because they're probably tired of hearing the debate about Miami and Notre Dame.
Yeah. Then in the ACC, you've got Duke 7-5 taking on Virginia 10-2.
I am
not much to say there.
Praying
for maximum
Duke
chaos,
to win.
you need Duke to win.
That would just be epic on so many levels, and I would feel really great about myself.
Yeah. In the American, you've got North Texas at 11-1 taking on Tulane at 10-2. And also of note, the Sun Belt, you've got Troy at 8-4 taking on James Madison. I think the winner of the American is going to get the playoff bid. Their conference championship game it's much better on both those parts than James Madison at 11-1. And Tulane has been ranked higher than James Madison in these polls. So I think the winner of the American gets the bid, unless something weird happens. Maybe if it's like a super close game and North Texas barely wins and James Madison blows out Troy, maybe they get it.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
I think it's most likely going to be the winner of the American that gets their playoff bid. And then the other two conferences, yeah, and then the other two conferences in the Mountain West, you got UNLV, the Fighting Dan Mullins at 10-2, taking on Boise State. And in the MAC, you've got Miami of Ohio at 7-5,
Maction,
taking
baby.
on Western Michigan at 8-4. And my God, that sounds like a MAC conference championship game. 7-5 versus 8-4. Yeah.
Good stuff.
So
Looking forward to it. You
that's it. That's
going to
championship week,
the
man.
SEC championship?
It's set up. Heck no, man. I've been to the last 3 Georgia games and spent a ton of money going into the Georgia Tech game last week. So I will not be in attendance. I
Yeah,
will be
because
at
it's still
home watching
Bama.
it and
They're the boogeyman.
probably yelling at my
They're our
television.
new Florida.
Yep. Yep. So last thing we should cover tonight, the coaching carousel has gotten wild, weird, and crazy. So we mentioned Lane Kiffin has taken the job at LSU. He has burned every bridge in Oxford, Mississippi that he could possibly bridge while trying to paint himself as a victim, saying that, he wanted to coach the team, but he wanted to coach the team through the playoffs and all that stuff. But I'm sorry, man, if you're taking the money and run, and you're leaving a program that you have built, a program that only had 7 10-win seasons in its 120-year history, that you've taken them to 10 wins in 4 of the last 5 years, and you up
It
and leave
is.
when you're about to make the playoffs. That's your choice, man.
I don't see
That's your
his
choice. So
interview and his
don't cry for me.
note as crying. I mean, I think it's pretty factual. Like I get where he's coming from. You would like to finish out the season because like I said last week, it's about legacy. It's about winning national championships as a coach. But unfortunately, due to the stupidness of the college football calendar,
Yeah.
he was forced into this situation. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And Kirby pointed that out when they asked him
Kudos
about
to
it
props to
today, too.
Lane. I mean,
He said, I wouldn't want to
remember
be in Lane's
what
position
happened
yeah.
in his past and how he had to go start from the bottom and now he's here, like he became I know, but you know what I mean, he coached at FIU.
He never started from the bottom. Daddy got him.
I know, that's when
Daddy
everything
got him a
went
head
bad,
coaching
and
job
then
with the Raiders
he went
when
through
he
the
had no head
Saban
coaching
rehab
experience.
and then went to FIU and now FAU and
FAU.
prove that he was the most sought after coach in the country.
Now he's one of the most sought after coaches in the country.
There's Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. Oh, I mean in general, like people
I know,
still
but of
take
the
Kirby
people that were truly available, like it was him
and Ryan
and the
Day
field,
and Signetti over
kind of like
Kiffin,
the old days of Tiger versus the field. It was Lane Kiffin and then the field.
Right.
And you called it as soon as all the rumors started when Florida first came open that Lane was probably going to go to LSU. And honestly, it makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world. He's going to have LSU rolling. Like they're going to be a force when everything's all said and done.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, just the carousel after that has just been nuts. Florida situation. They ended up hiring Summerall, from South Florida. Originally, it sounded like they wanted to go get Galesh, but that didn't work out. Galesh ends up with the job at Auburn. You got so many guys changing hands. Obviously, heck, even James Madison's coach is leaving, so I didn't even realize that. Bob Chesney was hired by UCLA today. So Kentucky decided to fire Mark
and one
Stoops.
of the most shocking
Why?
moves
I don't
of
know.
the day.
They're hiring Oregon's offensive coordinator, it looks like, most likely.
No one saw it really coming. Like it's been talked about for years and just never really had any traction. And and it finally.
It's crazy though. So because there are these teams that are competing for playoff spots. Obviously, Ole Miss is in. They're switching coaches. North Texas, their coach is going to Oklahoma State. I mentioned James Madison. Obviously, it's Tulane's coach is now gone. Summerall. He's hired at Florida.
Is
so
JMU's
you've got a
coach
lot of.
going
You might have
anywhere?
half the teams in the playoffs that don't
So
even have their
all
coaches.
three of
there,
the front runners of the G5.
Yeah, he is. He got hired by
all their coaches are gone.
Yeah.
Jeez.
He got hired by UCLA today. Yeah. Well, I've taken new jobs. I think they're all staying.
That was really Kiffin's
right
choice.
Now. They're not pulling a Kiffin. I think they're finishing out. So, but yeah. So lots more. We'll do a full show on the coaching carousel.
I know you are very impressed with the Auburn hire. You've been very high on
it's not slowing down
for a long time.
I like Alex Golosh. I think he's a great hire for Auburn. I think he's going to bring the fire that they haven't had, and I think it's a really good place. They've got a really good defense already. I think it's a good hire. I think
Florida
it's the best hire that they hires
in this situation. Apparently what is Sunbelt Billy Napier 2.0. Yeah, like literally the exact same resume.
Sunbelt Billy 2.0. Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, Penn State's still open.
Like I said, it's
the rumors are swirling that they're trying to get BYU's head coach.
Though apparently the CEO of Crumble Cookie, who is a big BYU donor, is stepping up tonight and said, "I've got to do something about this" on Twitter, and he's trying to get involved. So we don't know who ends up there. Penn State's a real industry situation because that's a top-notch job, and they seem to be lost. Like I don't know. There was rumors that they were trying to talk to Bohr into leaving Bama. There were rumors that they were trying to talk Heupel into leaving Tennessee. Heupel shut that down today.
I know. It's been out there for a while. So what is it about Penn State? I mean, there are lots of jokes that could be said. It is.
Right, but it's one of the best jobs in the country. So
I mean, who else?
I don't know.
There?
Maybe they're waiting on somebody else to finish their season.
Like who comes to mind? Like as a real candidate?
I don't.
Well, let's say the Crumble Cookie Empire
is a good candidate.
That comes through.
They can talk him out of it. Keeps him there.
Dan Mullen.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Brian Kelly. Yes.
Brian Kelly.
That would be, oh gosh, that would be hilarious.
Billy Napier.
No, here's what they did. They hire Ed Ogeron, the least Pennsylvania guy ever.
But
and then once Ed gets fired there, Lane Kiffin follows him because
back into coaching.
He's going full Ogeron cycle.
Yeah. There was a thing today that LSU is currently, as of today, paying 3 head coaches.
That sounds like Auburn.
Ed Ogeron, Brian Kelly, and Lane Kiffin. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think they're probably still playing Harsin Freeze and now their new coach.
No, it was a great weekend.
All right, man. Well, you got anything else?
It did not disappoint. I enjoyed watching every game, all the surprises. Still kind of shocked that A&M dropped that game to Texas. It was kind of nice to see Arch have a good game that he did because he's been given so much crap this year. And
man,
yeah,
the Heisman hype next year is going to be insane. If you thought it was bad this year when he was unproven, the fact that he's played so well down the stretch,
exactly, yeah,
it's going to be nuts next year. Just
Yeah,
be
this time
prepared.
I think it is warranted.
Except that sometimes it's pretty much warranted.
But
So
yeah, that was great to see. Glad to see the dogs get a win over Tech. That's always
all
great.
right, man.
Going back to work today, how was Thanksgiving? I was like, well, I ate a lot of food and the dogs beat Tech. So all in all, great Thanksgiving.
Yep. Yep. All right, man. Well, we'll be back later in the week to do our predictions for the conference championship games. And well, I guess we'll probably talk a little bit more about the playoff rankings and where we see them going. Maybe a little Heisman talk too. So
I'm Burl.
anyway,
Go
that's it for
dogs.
tonight. I'm Street. Go dogs.